Sorry, Roger.
I was just saying to those who I haven't greeted personally, I apologize for that. It's just like, wow, we have so many who've signed up for this story swap. Set a new record for Feast, over 90 people. Not sure how many we actually have, though it looks as though we're well on the way to 30.
27.
Live, which is fantastic. And then sadly, it's a reflection of the situation that we find ourselves in. I'm sure that most of you, like us here in Singapore, if you are freelancing, if you are part of the gig economy, your life has been basically wrecked. All our storytelling opportunities, performance opportunities anyway, have gone by the board here. We were due to be celebrating World Storytelling Day tomorrow at Tampines Regional Library with a nice collection of stories about voyages far and feminine. And sadly, that was, we thought as late as Thursday we might get away because it was a big space and we were hoping we could, you know, socially distance everybody, but know that the axe has fallen on that one as well. So it's a particularly hard time for us, isn't it, as storytellers? So, and really at a time when, of all things, we do want to try and connect with people. As Anna was just sharing, it's very easy to feel lost. You're in your own little bubble. You don't have contact with other people. And it's stories that just remind us of our humanity and kind of bring us together. And it is wonderful that in amongst the obviously sad or unpleasant sides of humanity that we are seeing that the virus is bringing out in people, that we are beginning to see more and more stories about people doing the altruistic thing and trying to help others. Some wonderful stories at the moment coming out of Canada and their idea of trying to share skills and expertise and to stop people instead of shaming, to get people into sharing, which is a really good thing that's happening there. So I hope tonight that at least this gives us a chance to do what we love to do, which is to tell stories and to do so safely. If you do cough, you don't have to kind of hear, you don't have to cover the screen because we're all safely in our own worlds and just looking forward to listening to you. We're going over to India straight away and Banu is in front of this rather splendid backdrop. I thought perhaps you might be in the middle of a town square or something, but I don't think it's real, is it?
My story will tell that. That will reveal that.
A number of us know you because you have been a regular participant in the webinars and on the story swaps. I've also seen you on the Worldwide Virtual Storytelling Guild sessions as well. But for those who don't, you just want to say a few words about yourself before you go into the story?
Yes. So hello, everybody. Hope you're all safe in your place, wherever you are. Stay safe. And I wish you all a very, very happy World Storytelling Day. It's a great pleasure for me to join Feast again this year to share a story. Only this year I'm sharing a story. All the while I've been a listener. So thank you for giving me an opportunity, Roger and Sheila. Thank you, Feast. So I'm a storyteller in Chennai. A couple of my buddy tellers are also here listening. So the storytelling journey for me, it started 8 years back with Dr. Eric Miller, and it went on. It's been going on. Learning part is going on. My storytelling basically are to schools and young children. My company, Fables and Tales, I tell stories through Fables and Tales. And yeah, I go to schools and I have my storytelling space where I tell stories every week to young children who come to my place.
Very nice.
Yeah, very much. I've been doing that for quite some time. And on and off, wherever I get opportunities for training and sessions for schools, colleges, I just do that. And we as a group of a couple of storytellers, we host events under Springboard Tales, a group. So through which we are telling stories throughout this week. It started today, and this entire week we will be sharing stories, one each day in YouTube. I mean,
what a
in
nice
Facebook.
idea. Very good. Very good. What's the story you have for us today?
My story is from 1001 Arabian Nights.
Mm.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. Yep, we have the music.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. This is a story from Baghdad. There lived a young man, a young merchant at Baghdad. He was called Abu. He was all alone, young, charming, well-built, and still single, who was ready to mingle. And his trade was excellent in his time. Did I tell you that he is a God-loving, trusting, and a dream-loving and trusting person? Yes. He believes in dreams. His dreams, whenever he gets a dream in the night, the first thing in the morning would be, he would write it down. He would write down and note down the shapes, the symbols, the colors that he gets in his dream. And he contemplates on it. And he connects them to his daily life. And also he sometimes follows his dreams, the instructions which he gets. One day, all of a sudden, something happened. His trade was collapsed, seized. His richness went down. He became poor, poor of the poorest. He just had his house to live in. That's all he had. He had to work from dawn to dusk. Oh, it was a tough time for him. He lived all in his richness, and now he has to work from morning till night to earn a meager food. He prayed to Allah, Allah, please help me to get back to my business. Let me get everything which I lost. Please help me. Every day his prayers were happened, but nothing fruitful could happen to him. Until one night he had a dream. In the dream, he saw a magnificent, a big, huge mosque. The mosque, which was totally green in color. And the mosque was well lit. Bright light was all over the mosque, and there came a voice out from the mosque. Mosque, Abu, it said, come to Cairo. Your fortune, your tarwa is there. Your tarwa is waiting for you. Come to Cairo. Abu, as he was so delighted and excited, he woke up. He woke up from his sleep and he started to write in his dream. And he drew all the images that he had seen. And the immediate next morning, he went out. He went out to Cairo, but he had no money. He just went to his friends and neighbors and asked, please give me some few dinars. I want to go to Cairo, please. So his friends and neighbors helped him. He got all the money that he wanted and he hired a camel. And there his journey started. He started his journey from Baghdad and he was on board to Cairo. Oh, what a long journey he has to cross to reach Cairo. He was all excited. He was all delighted. And he was looking forward for the treasure or the fortune that was said in his dream. It was a long journey. He has to travel day and night and day and night and day and night. Days and nights passed until he reached Cairo. By the time he entered Cairo, it was dark. It was dark, and he has to roam in the streets here and there and all directions until he reached the mosque, where it was full green and well lit, and the evening prayer was going on. Soon the people from the mosque left and went away. They dispersed to their houses. The mosque was empty. He looked here and there, but he could not find any clue for his fortune. He decided to stay in the mosque for the night, and he went inside and he covered himself with whatever he had, and he went to sleep. As he was sleeping and taking rest because of his tired journey, there in Cairo, something was waiting. It was the robbers. A team of robbers. They were waiting to steal from the house, which was next to the mosque. At midnight, the robbers slowly walked towards the house. And carefully, they tried to open the lock, and cling! They dropped something, and this noise, the sound of the cling, it reached the people who were sleeping inside the house, and they woke. Who is that? Who is that? Oh, thief! 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 They cried and they shouted and they screamed. This noise reached the robbers. They took to their heels and they flee in the directions as they can go into. And the people inside the house, they came around and they searched and looked in all the directions for the robbers and the thieves, but they could not find anyone. Soon the police officers came, and they too searched and searched and searched. Finally, they saw the mosque, and they entered into the mosque. And whom should they see? Yes, but Abu. Abu, in his sleep, in his tired journey, he twisted and tossed in the sleep, and the police officers, what more they want? Hey, you, come here! They grabbed him by his collar and they dragged him and gave him nice thrashings with his palm rods and thrashings, black and blue. He cried, "No, please, please let me go. I'm an innocent fellow. Please let me go." But nobody listened to it. Soon Abu was thrown into the prison. Abu was there in the prison for 3 days. And finally, the third day came the chief of the police officers, and he called Abu. "Hey, you, come here. Where are you from? Who are you?" I'm a poor merchant from Baghdad." "Huh? From Baghdad? What brought you here to Cairo?" My dream." "What? A dream?" "Yes, I got a dream that my fortune is here in Cairo." So silly. A man traveling all the way from Baghdad to Cairo behind a dream and searching for a fortune. So silly and funny. You know what? The chief of the police officer, I too got a dream. Not once, not twice, but thrice I got a dream that there is a fountain in Baghdad. And there is a tree between the fountain and a house. And beneath the tree, there is a fortune or a treasure that is buried around under. Did I ever went there, leaving all my job here, traveling all the way to Baghdad to dig a fortune? Ha! I have better jobs to do. I never went. You silly fellow, here, take this money and go home. Okay. Only after coming here, I came to know that only the palm thrashing is my fortune. Thank you so much. He got the money, and with heavy heart and disappointment, he walked back. He went back to Baghdad, all the way pondering about his fate, about his dream, about his journey to Baghdad. And there he went to his house. He sat in front with heavy heart and disappointment. What would I do? Allah, what would I do? Just then, water splashed on his face. He looked up. It was not rain. He just looked in front. It was the water from a water fountain in front of his house. Just then, his face lit up and he said, "A fountain?" And he tried to recollect what the police officer said. A fountain? A house? Between the fountain and the house, there is a tree. And yes, he did that. He realized that there must be the dream, the treasure which the police officer had told. Soon he rushed to the tree and he dug and he dug and dug and dug. And there he found the treasure chest, shining, shimmering, glittering treasure chest. He took it and he opened the box, and what could he see? Yes, all the wealth that he wants, that is in need for him to get back his life, get back to become a merchant. He thanked, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, thank you God, thank you so much. Yes, my dreams came true. After I traveled, after my journey, I came to know that here, my treasure is in front of me. And that is the end of the story. Thank you for listening.
Very nice. Thank you, Banu. Thank you. I thought it was highly appropriate that we should start this particular session with a story about a man who's lost all his money. That really resonated with me completely and totally and full. So I think I'm going to go now. I need to go on a journey and find some money. Okay.
Hi, Roger.
I think we're all going to Cairo. There'll be a sudden massive inflection, if that's the right word. Oh no, the airports are under lockdown. What a shame. But then again, how symbolic, Banu, that at the end of the story, he comes back, and it's at home, right there in front of his own door, that he actually finds what it is that he's looking for. It's got shades of Wizard of Oz, really. Yeah. Start by wanting to get out of Kansas, but then what we want to do is to get back to Kansas. Okay. So thank you. I thought that was a great, totally accidental, Banu. I had no idea that that was going to be the story. And there are so many versions of it, aren't there? I'm sure Lynn knows the Peddler of Swaffham.
Yeah.
Is there English version? I tell a story that is Eastern Europe, but I think comes from the Jewish tradition. And I'm looking to see if Shalni is on my screen. But Shalni, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Glad at least to be hearing stories at this particular time. As you are aware, it's a pretty bad scene at the moment, isn't it? So it's really good that we can be here to share stories. And you could say just a few words, just introduce yourself, because I think a lot of people won't know you.
Okay.
And then we'll go into the story.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Shalni. I'm a storyteller in Singapore. Sometimes I feel like a jack of many trades, and I'm waiting to be the master of at least one or two. Always a work in progress. At least there is progress. So that's what we work towards. My story today is called Honest Earnings. It was so interesting that Banu's story was a Persian story, and it talked about, the journey to find something. It has a journey, but like I told Roger, it's more of it has a spiritual leaning. It's a story that is something my mother always told us when she was trying to get us to finish our dinner. And also a story to encourage us to remember to be good people, and that good things come to those who wait. So I guess there are many messages in that in its own way, but that it brings me back to my childhood, and it's something I told my boys as well, so I'm sharing it with all of you. The story is called Honest Earnings, and it's actually a story that is based in India, but it's with the one of the Persian rulers. It involves King Nasiruddin. Now, I always thought there was a name that was given just to throw it out there, a name to the king, but he actually exists, and he ruled India in Delhi from 1246 to 1266, and he was a very religious man, a very honest man, and he never took any money from the treasury for his own use or for his own family's use, in fact. So whatever was gotten from the taxes was used for the country, and he ruled from Delhi. But he never used it for his own upkeep or his wives. What he did was he would copy the Quran. Okay, so he would by hand copy the Quran, and he would sell it in the market. And the thing is, he never sold it by himself. He sent it through a servant, so that because people knew that the Sultan, the king had written this, they would want to pay a lot of money for it. He just wanted to have what was the real value of it, the actual market value. If it was 2 rupees, it was 50 paisa. He would want that, and so he got a servant to sell it for him. And from whatever he earned from, copying the Quran and selling, he would take care of his family. So now this very faithful servant of his would do as the king wanted. And he had only one servant. And this one servant one day got a message from home. And, it said, please come home urgently, you are needed. So he went to the king. And he asked the king, sire, I need to go home. My family members need me. Can I have my salary, please? And I need to go home. But unfortunately, the king said, at this point, I have no money. Now, the servant did think, you have the whole treasury behind you, but he knew also the king's ways. So he said, okay, I will wait. And he waited very patiently. And in the meantime, messages after messages were coming to him from his family members. And so one day he couldn't take it any longer. He said, sire, please, I need to go home. My family needs me. Could you please give me some money, my salary, so I can go home? So now at that point, King Nasiruddin reached into his pocket and he took out 2 rupees and he gave it to his servant. And he said to the servant, this is all I have at the moment. Please take it and go home, and God be with you, be blessed. Now, after working for so many years for the king, the servant had at least expected, some gold coins, maybe some clothes, some cloth, something. But alas, he only got those 2 rupees, and he knew that he wasn't going to get any more. And so he said farewell and he went off. And as he walked home and he went through city after city, either on horse or on foot, he was he wondered, what am I going to get for my family? I mean, they must be expecting so much. And here I'm coming home with only 2 rupees. And so as he walked through one city, he saw a vendor selling pomegranates. And he said, oh, and there were a lot of pomegranates, so beautifully red, so lovely looking. So he said, well, okay, at least if I can't bring anything else, I'll bring pomegranates. And so he asked the vendor, I have 2 rupees. How much can you give me? And because, lucky for him, there had been a bumper crop. So he got a whole load of pomegranates, plenty of pomegranates for his 2 rupees. And he was surprised. He was like, wow, I've never received so much for so little. And so he kept the pomegranates and he walked on. And he walked on and he walked on and he came to another country, another city along his journey. And when he got there, he took a rest. He was having lunch at a stall on the roadside, when suddenly he saw some very official-looking men coming into the town center, the town square. And everybody stopped to listen to them. And the men beat a drum, hear ye, they beat a drum, everyone listen. And he said, the queen is ill. And all the doctors have said that the only thing that will cure her is the juice of pomegranates. Now, anyone here who has pomegranates, the king will give you 1,000 rupees for each pomegranate you have. Now, in that country, there were no pomegranates. So when everybody looked at each other, like, huh? Pomegranates? Where are we supposed to bring pomegranates from? We've never seen one, let alone, eaten one. Come on. So it was quite a rare thing. Now, but when the servant heard that, he was like, huh? Really? 1,000 rupees for one pomegranate? Wow. So he quickly finished his meal and he followed the soldiers because they were going to go off and spread the message in another area. So he quickly ran after them and he said, Sir, I just heard your announcement. I have pomegranates. And the soldiers were like, what, really? How many do you have? And he opened his bag and he showed them how many he had. And they were like, oh, that's a lot of pomegranates. Come with us. And so he did. And so he followed the soldiers back to the king. And when the king saw the pomegranates, oh, he was overjoyed. He couldn't believe his good fortune. He thanked the servant over and over again. And he said, how many can I take? And the servant said, you can take as many as you want. I bought so many. So the king took as many as he could, as many as he needed. He consulted the doctors. He took as many as he could, and he paid the servant 1,000 rupees for each pomegranate. Not only that, he was so grateful that he sent an escort with the servant. He said, you are not going on foot anymore. I will give you a horse, one of my best steeds, and my soldiers will accompany you. They will be your guards until you reach home. Never will you be unsafe on your travels. And so, in great royal fashion, the servant reached home. And when his family saw him, they said, oh yes, the servant of a king has come in such a noble fashion. And so we see that from something so small, but so honestly earned, the servant had gotten so much. The end.
Lovely. Oh, thank you. That's a fantastic story. Lovely. I really enjoyed that. I loved the beginning. And I thought, well, I must send it off to Harry and Meghan. I'm sure that they would love the job. They're writing out the Quran, or they could write out the Bible and sell that in the marketplace. Yes. Definitely. And I'm surprised you didn't submit that story for our book. Can I just get that in as a little plug here for royals, wise and otherwise? Because I'm not sure if that king, I mean, really, he wouldn't get far today, would he? I mean, giving somebody 2 rupees after all those years of work, heavens above. You know, French revolutions and worse have come from kings who behave like that. But great story. Yes. So here's another way to run your business: get pomegranates here and sell them over there.
Yeah, $2 was ₹2 was a lot of money those days.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Yes, yes, and pomegranates were plentiful. Very good, very good. I'm wondering if we're beginning to see a trend here. We've had two stories about journeying and wealth. So perhaps this is the trend that we're going to have this evening.
We all live in hope.
Yes, right. The message is don't stay at home, get out. So of course, we must say wait until after the pandemic is over, then go off on your travel. So, and speaking of traveling, we are really going to travel a long way because Anabelle, yes, Castano, I hope I've said that correctly, who is joining us all the way from Buenos Aires, but has kindly agreed to speak to us in English tonight and not in Spanish, which is her mother tongue. So, way over on the far side of the world, okay, a warm welcome. Would you like just to say a few words about yourself and the stories you were saying that you specialize in folklore?
Well, hello everyone again. My name is Anabelle Castano, and oh, it's okay. The end with the little thing up on top. It's a problem
the little squiggly thing.
That's
yes,
right.
okay.
That's right.
Castano.
It's a
Okay.
problem for everyone non-Spanish. It's all right. And well, I live in Buenos Aires. I'm an archaeologist, a storyteller, a professional storyteller, and I work merging both things in a museum. So that's why, yes. So I usually do storytelling sessions at my museum, which is not mine, of course. I work there. And since we have, the museum is on anthropology and archaeology, and we have collections from all over the world, but especially from First Nations of my own country, from this area. So I do a lot of storytelling linked to the objects that we have inside the museum. And the story that I have chosen to bring to you today, it's from the Mapuche people in Patagonia. That's the south of Argentina, and it's a very how can I say it? It's a very rich environment. You have desertic areas, and you have beautiful green forests with blue lakes and mountains. The Andes mountain range crosses all over, and you have Mapuche people living on both sides. And they were very much persecuted by the Argentinians and the Chileans, who are our neighbors, during the 19th and even 20th and 21st century. So some of the stories that we tell are also a way of making people in Buenos Aires, who are far away from these indigenous territories, aware of what is going on still nowadays, and also to bring the rich culture of these First Nation.
Wonderful.
So the first thing that I'm going to say is Mari Mari, which is in Mapuche, in Mapuzungun, hello to everyone. And the story starts not with a journey, but with a marriage. And yes, it's the story of Shu-shu, that in some versions of the Mapuche people is called Mallen. And well, Shu-shu was a beautiful young girl that was about to marry. And she was the favorite of her father. He was a longo, a head, a person in charge of his tribe in their territory. And he had several wives, and his first wife, who was not Shu-shu's mother, was very jealous of this young, beautiful girl that had everything in front of her. She had the potential of having a beautiful new life. And we don't know why this stepmother, this second mother, was suddenly started feeling hate in her heart. So before the ceremony, before the marriage ceremony, she went to a witch and asked this witch to make something to let Shu-shu suffer. So this witch, what she did was merge bones from a warrior with poisons and with certain grasses from there. And with this and a curse, she gave it in the form of a small cream to Shu-shu's stepmother. And Shu-shu's stepmother approached her and she told her, oh, well, before your marriage ceremony, I want to gift you this. This is a cream, so you're radiant tomorrow when your husband kidnaps you, which is the tradition of marriage over there. And he'll find you glorious and in a way that he has never seen you before. And Shu-shu innocently accepts this and she covers his face with this cream. And in the next morning, when at dawn, her future husband comes to kidnap her, he opens the door, he sees her, and he lets out a scream because what he sees is the face, not of a person, but a skull, with the empty sockets, with the teeth, with everything, without hair. Shu-shu has become, well, her face has become a skull. And she doesn't realize this. If she touches her face, it's there still. So her village, well, mostly pushed by this stepmother, they call her a bad omen and they push her away. And her new husband rejects her and she's left alone. So she starts to wander the world looking for a solution. And for this, she asks for the help of a Mathy, which is a medicine woman. And she tells her, you have a curse and you have to find the bones of this warrior, the rest of the bones of this warrior that were used for the thing that was put on your face. So she starts wandering the world. She goes to a forest and goes to a desert, all over Patagonia, trying to find the bones. And well, you would say it's impossible. It's a search that it's something that one can never achieve. But in the meantime, while she's walking and wandering and looking for everything that is a solution for her, she finds a small ant that is trapped in a web, I have to remember this word, a spider web. So she reaches out for the ant and she helps it and she puts it on the ground and she says, go away, little ant. And the ant tells her, no, wait, come. Dig, here, deep. And she starts digging. And she finds long bones from legs, from arms. And she says, are these my bones? Are these the bones I'm looking for? But it's only long bones. She doesn't find the whole skeleton. Nevertheless, she takes them and carries them with her. And she keeps on walking and she finds another forest. And in the forest, she finds a wounded huemul. The huemul is a kind of deer from Patagonia. So she goes to the huemul and extracts the arrows that it has stuck to its back. And she cures him. Well, she cures it. And the huemul, when it's thanking her, starts knocking on the ground and says, dig, stop, dig, here, deep. And she goes and digs. And she finds the bones of the thoracic, the chest cavity. So she finds those bones and part of the spine of a person. And she says, okay, these are the bones that I'm looking for. These are the bones of the person that at one time disappeared. And she takes them with her and she still keeps going because the bones that are lacking, the only piece of bone that it's lacking is the skull. She hasn't found the skull. So she keeps on walking. And eventually she finds a cave in the middle of a huge thunderstorm. And she gets inside the cave, and in the cave she finds a puma. A puma here, it's like an American mountain lion. And the puma for the Mapuche is a symbol of strength. So the puma, the trapial, looks at her and starts growling and starts looking threatening. But she approaches very respectfully and she finds that the puma has a needle in its paw. So she approaches it very slowly and she takes out the needle. And the puma licks the needle and starts doing all the grooming that felines do. And then allows her to sleep next to it. And in the morning, when the storm is still falling outside, the puma tells her that offers her a vessel to drink water from. And when she takes the vessel and goes outside to get rain inside so she gets water, she realizes that the vessel that she's holding, that she didn't see in the darkness of the cave, is a skull. So she puts all the bones together and she realizes that all this search has been for a person, perhaps herself, perhaps this other person that is not here among us. And she starts crying, and the tears fall on the bones. And she goes to sleep. She falls asleep there, crying. And when she wakes up, she feels her face on warm skin. And when she opens her eyes, she realizes that she's lying on top of a man, because those bones are a person again. And this person, this human man that is alive, touches her face and says, I have found you. Thank you.
Oh, what a story. Wow. I love that story. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. I apologize because in English, sometimes some things get lost, but in my English at least.
But no, it was beautiful. And the accent also just was fantastic. And I love the part of the dig, dig, dig.
Yes.
Your face so expressive. There is a story on the BBC channel today about a very expressive deaf interpreter in America, based in New England, and she has been getting so much screen time because the governor or whoever it is, they're making these announcements about the virus, and of course she is there interpreting as a deaf person, speaking not with, if you like, American Sign Language, but using sign, but a way to communicate with the deaf. And again, just so visual and expressive. And again, just watching the way that you were doing there, just came across really vividly. It was just beautiful to see. Unfortunately, we don't get that many stories about your part of the world, but we do hear the stories about these people who have disappeared and who are being found, the mothers who are searching for the lost children, political dissidents and so on. Yes, and so this story must really resonate, I would think. I mean, it's very powerful.
I adapted a little bit of it because that's right, it resonates here. Actually, on Tuesday, it's our anniversary. In 1976 was the military coup, and we're having the 44th anniversry. And due to the pandemic and the quarantine that we were doing, they have asked us not to go outside and march and not celebrate, but rememorate. But at the same time, also the Mapuche people have lost many people also. So the adaptation is also a way of speaking of something that they still suffer. They have lost territories and lost. Well, anyway, all First Nations have, and in a sense, this version goes or points towards that also, to remind us that we are looking for us, but also for some other people.
Yes, and just also, I was interested in the idea of the groom coming to kidnap the bride. I think that's a great way to start a marriage.
It was a very traditional way. So usually the groom had agreed with the bride and the family. Not always. That was not the best position, but they usually it was everything agreed. So it was like, oh, they're kidnapping me, help me. But you know, you would have that tradition. So
yes.
so well.
Yes. I imagine in the face of Me Too that tradition is being rewritten drastically.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
and actually we have many great Mapuche women that are reference for us as strong examples of changing the narrative and practices. Yes.
Yeah. Good.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for sharing that story. And I would hope that at some point I would love to do a session where we got to link it with the idea of museums and artifacts and telling stories. I would love to have one of those kind of stories. I realize you may not be able to bring the artifact out of the museum, but wouldn't that be fun to try and sort that out and see how we could to do that? Or perhaps there's an idea for another webinar, Sheila, the idea of working with historical artifacts and sharing those kinds of stories, which I think here in Singapore, with our society is changing so fast. We're as a nation, we're still very young, but the physical landscape is changing so rapidly that the things that we have, the physical artifacts to remind us of who we were and where we came from, I think have become more and more important, because the buildings are all being demolished and rebuilt and redeveloped, and the urban landscape is just every 10 years it's completely different. So there's something to KIV, and see if we keep in view and see if we can't do something. So thank you so much, Anabelle.
Thank you.
We really enjoyed listening to your story. And we're now going to go over to perhaps another people who might feel that they've been oppressed, Rona, by the barbaric English in their years, not necessarily treating the Scots as fairly as they'd like to be treated. And indeed, at the moment, there's certainly Scots are clamouring for the right to decide their own future, which Mr. Johnson seems determined to deny them, at least for the moment.
You're absolutely right, Roger.
Thank you very much.
I'm fine, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Good.
Hello.
Good. So, Rona, nice to be in
Just
touch
right
with
into
you
this,
again.
yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name's Rona Barbour. I'm a lifelong storyteller, born into a family of storytellers that goes back generations. And I feel as if my whole life has been lived through story. And every single day I find another story and I just love it. And I've found another 3 stories today, so thank you very much, guys. I will obviously ask each of you individually if I'm allowed to retell that story at some point. I'd love to do that. But right now I'd like to tell you a story, which is a journey, but it's a journey with a difference. It's a journey of a young man and his chosen occupation. Tom was just 12 years old when he decided that he was going to be a fisherman. And he based this decision on the fact that the night before he'd been on the trawler with his father, fishing trawler, out in the North Sea during a storm. And the storm was so bad that he was getting thrown about the boat like a cork in a sandstorm. And it was the best roller coaster ride he'd ever had. And he put that down to being a fantastic occupation. I'll be a fisherman when I grow up. Never touched a net, never drew a fish, but thought this was what he would be when he grew up. His mother did not like this idea one little bit. She had lived with fishermen all of her life. Her own father, her husband, her grandfather, her husband's father, his grandfather and grandfather before him. It was the family tradition. She did not want it to carry on with her one and only son. She wanted him. He was a clever boy. She wanted him to go to university and perhaps gain a profession like a doctor or a lawyer, the first one in the family, and maybe do something to do with ology. She loved the idea of onology, especially psychology. Oh yes, she wanted her boy to do something special. He was not the least bit interested, although he was very clever. He wasn't really academic. That didn't inspire him at all. He wanted a life of adventure and he thought he would find that at sea. So at 12 years old, he's having this conversation with his mother. Yes, I'm going to be a fisherman. And she resigned herself to the fact that more than likely it was going to happen. So she said to him, okay, but at least you've got a good start because you can join the ship with your father. Oh no, he said, I'm not going to work on my father's boat. I'm going to have my own boat. Oh, Tom, I don't think you realise, sweetheart, how much money it costs to buy a fishing boat. I'm not going to buy one, Mum. I'm going to build one. Well, I don't think you realise how much money it will cost to buy the materials to build a boat. I'm not going to buy them. I'm going to use things that people don't want. In fact, if you would look at a Viking ship of hundreds of years ago, they were made entirely of wood. I'm going to make my boat entirely of wood. But wood's very expensive. I told you, Mum, I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to use all the wood that other people don't want. Nowadays, we would call it recycling. He just called it using other people's wood. He sat down that night and he wrote a note for his 60 neighbours in the village. There were 60 houses in the village along with theirs. Hi all, you know me, I'm Tom, I live at number 4, my dad's the trawler captain, and I'm going to build a boat for myself. I want to use wood that nobody else needs, so if you've got an old wardrobe or chest of drawers or a big old table that you don't need anymore, please bring it down to me at number 4 the High Street, because I'm going to build a boat. Well, his mother could not have imagined in her wildest dreams what was going to happen next. Every single family in that village seemed to have not 1 or even 2, but at least 3 items of furniture that they wanted to offload. And they were all getting offloaded in her garden. She was not amused. She was even less amused when they started to take over the whole alleyway and then into the house. And she drew the line when she had to jump over a chest of drawers to get into her bed. Enough, she said. You'll have to tell the people to stop bringing the wood. So that night he sat down again and he wrote another note. Hi all, thank you very much for your generosity. I've got lots of wood now and I'm sure I've got enough to build my boat. So please don't bring any more. Thank you, Tom. Well, with all of this wood, his mother thought, there's no way he's going to be able to build a boat using this. Some of it's useless, some of it's too thin, some of it's too old, some of it's rotten. But Tom was not the least bit daunted. Don't worry, Mummy said, I'm going to sort out the good from the bad. And whatever I don't use, I will get taken down to the sawmill and they can use that, grind it down to sawdust and it can get used for something else. True to his word, although he was only 12 years old, that young man set about almost immediately working on that wood. If he wasn't eating or sleeping or in school, he was working on his boat. He cut the wood and it was as if he was building something from Lego or these little plastic bricks that the kids use, because he cut every single one exactly the same size using a little miter. And he ended up with thousands of them. And they were all stacked very neatly along the back wall in the garden. His mother was beginning to become very impressed. Maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. That had taken him 2 years. Now, at 14 years of age, he set about starting to build the actual boat. But you don't know what you're doing, son. You know, a boat has to be safe. You have to know what you're doing to make... Mum, don't concern yourself. I know exactly what I'm doing. And by the side of his bed, on the bedside table, he had a pile of books. Ship's Architect. He had drawings on the back of his bedroom door. He was taking this very seriously. And in fact, he made a fantastic job of building a boat. It took him 2 years to do that as well. And on his 16th birthday, he was ready to take off on his first adventure. Sailing the high seas and bringing back fish galore. He could hardly sleep the night before, he was so excited. And on the day of his birthday, his grandfather presented him with his first net. His boat, by the way, was fabulous. It was about 3 meters long and just under 2 meters wide. And there was a hold in the middle for the fish, where they would put ice before they would take off on the journey. And it just looked fabulous. It was the perfect little craft. Everything was made of wood except the crantos for holding the oars and the actual mast that his mother had made for him. And his grandfather made the net. And his father gave him a very special present as well. He gave him a fishing knife that had been in the family for generations. It was solid silver with an embossed handle. It was beautiful. It was a piece of art. But it had been used so long and so often that it had tapered to a fine point, almost needlepoint. Very sharp indeed. It was kept in a leather sheath which he had round his waist, and that was his prized possession. His mother was in tears as she made his sandwiches for the journey, thinking she might never see her son again. He was going to take off on this little boat. She now realised this was just a tiny little boat, and her son was going out into the North Sea in this tiny boat, and she was terrified. If Tom was to be honest, he was slightly cautious himself. He was getting a little bit worried when he saw how rough the sea was, and his boat so small. But when they pulled it down, and by the way, I never knew this, but boats have wheels. And he pulled it down onto the sands and into the sea. And into the boat he went. And his mother stood there, rooted to the spot, watching as he disappeared over the horizon. Even as he disappeared over the horizon, she could not move. Her legs felt like stone. She couldn't move. Her heart was so heavy. But she eventually turned and walked home. And Tom had reached that point in the sea where he could just see the land and no more. And he looked down, and there was something rather strange, because the sea round about him was suddenly calm. That was strange. So he decided to drop his net when he saw a little bit of movement, but that movement suddenly turned to gurgling, and the whole thing was swirling and wild and crazy, and he chucked his net over the water, and it filled up very quickly. One thing young Tom hadn't considered, that when you go fishing, it usually takes more than one person to pull in the catch because it's very heavy. It took him a long time to drag that net on board and tip it into the hold. And when he did, there was one particularly large tail, and he thought, what's that? Maybe it's a shark. And as he pulled it, ouch, I've caught a talking fish. Oh my word, I've caught a talking fish. And he pulled it again. Put me down, you fool. As he lifted, he saw there was a body and arms and a head, and this magnificent head of ginger hair. I've caught a mermaid. Oh my word, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to take you home and I'm going to put you in a tank in my front. Ah, I'll stop you right there, young man. You're not going to do any such thing. You're going to put me back in the water right now. Oh, I can't do that, said Tom. Oh, I couldn't even think of doing that. Well, you must. My father, King Neptune, will rise from the seas, and with his mighty trident, he will swipe your entire village into the sea if you don't let me go right now. A dilemma. Oh, what does he do? Does he let her go? Nobody's ever going to believe that he caught her if he did. And she said, I know the problem. You'll have to let me go, and then when you go home and tell people you've caught a mermaid. How do you know this, he said. She said, because I know everything, I'm a mermaid. Oh. She said, I'll tell you what, Tom. How do you know my name? She says, I told you I know everything. I'll make it easier for you, she said. I'm going to give you a gift in return for you setting me free with no further fuss. What are you going to give me? Oh, what have you got? She says, well, what do you think I've got? Where do you think all the treasure ends up? For the ships that sink here, at the bottom of the sea. She says, well, that's my front room. What would you like? Would you like diamonds? Or, oh, I said, I don't know. She said, I've got Roman swords, I've got helmets, I've got artifacts. What's artifacts, he says? Historical things that people, like to keep and look at, and they're usually valuable. It's maybe something like an Egyptian vase. Oh, I don't want a vase, he said. Oh, no, I don't want a vase. maybe my mum would like a vase. No, she wouldn't like a vase. I'll tell you what, he said, just surprise me. She said, okay, but I'll have to borrow that knife. Oh no, he said, I can't give you that. Why would you need the knife? He says, well, she said, at the bottom of the seaweed is all tangled and it's thick and it's heavy and I need something to cut it away so that I can get you some treasure. Another dilemma. Oh, does he give her the knife? Does he go without the gift? Oh. And of course, the gift won out. So he handed her the knife very carefully. He said, please be careful. This has been in my family for generations. And she took it by the handle and she said, don't worry, it's safe with me. And he helped her to drop over the side of the boat and she disappeared into the water. And he sat back thinking, oh, I wonder what I'm going to get. Oh, I wonder if it'll be diamonds. My mum would love that. I wonder if it'll be gold. Oh, this is so exciting. Hold on a minute. She's been a while, hasn't she? I think that must be about 15 minutes. Oh gosh. Oh no. I've been had, haven't I? She's taken me for a mug. She's off with my knife. What am I going to tell my father? What am I going to tell my grandfather? Well, they'll be absolutely heartbroken. And and the next minute, up she plops at the side of the boat. And he helps her in. And she hands him the knife in the same careful way, handle first. And he's looking. You know, mermaids don't have pockets. That is a fact. Mermaids do not have pockets. Where was his gift? Her hands were empty. Well, he was a very well brought up young man, so he couldn't say, where's my present? So what he said was, well, I'll be going now, I'm going home. Yeah, she said, okay. No, but I mean, I'm actually leaving now. Yeah, I get that, she said. I hear you. But you don't understand, I'm going. What's wrong with you, boy? What's the matter with you? Well, where's my present? How rude. She said, you've already got it. Where? She says, it's tied to the back of the boat. And he looked round, and tied to the back of the boat was a little green bag made of seaweed. It's in there. Oh, what is it? Is it gold? Is it diamonds? Oh. She said, it's seawater. What? It's seawater. No, I mean, what's my gift? That's your gift. I'm a fisherman. I'm floating in the stuff all day, and you've given me a little bag of seawater as my gift. It's not just any seawater, Tom. There's 1,000 miles of the sea in that bag. You've got your own ocean. Is there sharks in my ocean? Yep. Whales? Everything. Treasure? Yes, everything. Oh, gosh, I can't believe it. Well, this is better than taking back a mermaid. No offense, but if I've got my own ocean, there'll be mermaids in there too. And he bade her farewell. And this time, she didn't disappear down into the deep water. Oh no, she swam rather leisurely, doing the backstroke like this, as he watched her disappear. And then he heard, na, 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 na. What was that? Na, 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 na. And all of a sudden, there was a row of mermaids, heads out of the water. Na, 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 na. And he said, oh no, she's taken me for a complete fool. There's not 1,000 miles of the sea in that little bag. Oh God. Oh well, I better get my fish home, at least that's something. And he started on his journey back. And when he got back, his mother was there waiting for him. She'd only got as far as halfway home when she thought, I'm going to go back and wait and watch. Some of his friends had gathered on the beach. This was his first journey after all. And they all gathered round to see what he had. Wow, those are great fish. Well done, good catch. course, he couldn't help himself, could he? That's not all I caught. Caught a mermaid. Okay. No, I did. I caught a mermaid. And one of the lads moved the tarpaulin and said, well, where is she? Well, I had to put her back. Oh, don't tell us. You had to put her back because if not, her father, King Neptune, tried and da-da-da. But no, it wasn't like that. I caught a mermaid. And then he made his next mistake because he said, she gave me a gift. Why didn't I just keep my mouth shut? Oh, really? What did she give you? Well, I don't know because it's in this little bag, and he picked it up and it was really heavy. And his mum said, well, what's in it? He said, I don't know. She didn't tell me. Well, open it. So he takes the knife and he says, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to take it home because I want to show it to my girlfriend. And his mum said, you've not got a girlfriend. He says, but I'm going to get one. She says, just open the bag, Tom. Oh. There was nothing else he could do. He lifted the knife and he said a little prayer. Oh, please, please don't let this be seawater. Don't let this be seawater. And he sliced and out it came. First of all, just a few trickles of seawater and then more. And then it was gushing. And as it gushed and landed on the floor, they couldn't believe their eyes. It turned into gold. Gold. Run, they said, run for your lives, get home, get buckets, get basins, get suitcases, get anything you can find and bring it and gather this gold before the tide takes it back because it was already on its way in. So they did. And Tom and his friends and family gathered up 63 bags and buckets and basins full of gold. And he was a very, very happy young man that afternoon. And he made a decision there and then that he was not going to be a fisherman because it was too much like hard work.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to become a property developer. He was going to use that money and he was going to buy up lots of houses. And he did. He bought up half of Aberdeen. And that's why you can't get a house there now for love nor money. And when you can, they're far too expensive. But more than that, Tom is the only fisherman, even after just one day, the only fisherman who was ever able to prove that he actually caught a mermaid. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Ah, great stuff. Great stuff. Love it. Love it. Very nice. Yes, yes. So now we know why Brexit is going to have such a big battle over the fisheries and the fishing rights. I understand now. So Boris Johnson is correct. Absolutely. He's looking for that bag that he can pull out with all the gold. Very good. Very good.
But more than that, I think a lot of people now here are thinking, have we made a mistake coming out of Brexit? Because being on our own in this situation is not good.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I wish you all safe and well in this horrible time that we're going through.
Thank you. Thank
Blessings to you all.
Well, laughter is a very good medicine, and it was just delightful to hear that. And I just love the your style of telling, Rona. It's just very, very casual, very intimate and appropriate for this kind of sharing. So thank you very much indeed for that. So we have a couple more stories to come. Unfortunately, several people who had thought they might tell today are suffering with sore throats and stuff. But John, hi John, good to see you. I think we're actually meeting here. Have I met you before? I don't think so.
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
Surprised.
Well, possibly Singapore is a little bigger than people tend to realize, because you're also here in Singapore, right?
That's right.
And what do you do in real life when you're not storytelling?
currently, I generally am a freelance life skill coach and drama.
Okay.
But right now the coronavirus is really bad. So actually I was
Sure.
supposed to go to Vietnam to teach for a full-time job, but it just got stuck in Singapore. They just closed the borders. Everybody's closing the borders. Even Vietnam is in a bad state. So
Sure.
I'm stuck
Sure.
for the duration. Yeah. For me, I guess I grew up in a, like Rona, I grew up in a storytelling environment because my mom has
Lucky
been
you.
telling stories to all her students since young, and she will bring us around Singapore and pay them, you know, get them to pay for tours and tell them, oh, you know, look, this Merlion and what happened at the Merlion, so on and so forth. So I grew up in stories, and yeah, I love stories because I intuited with my teaching. Rather than just telling theory, I will use stories that my students can relate to. For example, father and mother stories, child, son and child. So I'll bring the lesson into the classroom. They go like, oh, I see the parallels of it, and they okay, and they find that I'm more interesting because I share so many personal stories.
Very good. Very good.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
The story is set in Japan, long time ago. There was this young, poor, but very kind-hearted fisherman by the name of Urashima. He lived in this poor fishing village by the side of the sea with his parents. One day, he came back from his fishing trip with this few tiny fishes on his stick. He was walking down the street, and then he saw a group of young children. They were making a lot of noise and taking the sticks and poking something. Urashima was really curious, what is that? He came closer and saw a turtle upside down. And the little boys and girls were taking sticks and they're poking it and trying, come on, kick it harder, poke it harder. And they said, stop, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to this turtle? And I said, no. The boys and girls said, leave us alone, we're having our fun, what's a turtle to you? And Urashima said, you have lived but 3-4 years. This turtle can live up to 1,000 years. You must understand, Japanese turtles can live up to 1,000 years. And the boys and girls said, go, leave us and do our fun with it. Urashima thought, okay, how about I exchange this turtle with these fishes that I've caught? The leader of the boys thought, all right. I would rather fuel our tummy rather than have fun, you know, rather than disturb this turtle and have this old man making noise at us. So he passed them the fishes and they passed him the turtle. He took the turtle, he looked at it. It had just old wrinkly eyes, old wrinkly fins, and an old wrinkly tail. He looked at it. Oh turtle, you must have lived for a long time, and I will set you free. So he walked down to the shore and put it in the sea. Goodbye, turtle, and do not come back again. He looked as he drifted off into the horizon, and he didn't think about it. So he went back empty-handed, and he told his parents about it, and they understood because they were all kind-hearted. The next day, Urashima was out as usual, far away from shore, when suddenly a storm rose, and his tiny boat was flipped up and down and around and around, and he was like thinking, oh no, what's going to happen to me? If I'm dead, who's going to feed my parents? And then, all of a sudden, a turtle came up, and he looked at it. He shook his eyes. Was he dreaming? Was this the same turtle? And then, to his big, huge surprise, the turtle spoke. I am the turtle that you saved. And the Sea King wants to meet you. He shook his eyes again. The turtle spoke to me. Am I dreaming? And the turtle said, climb on my back and I'll bring you to the Sea King. He couldn't do it. He had no other choice because his boat was turning all around. He climbed on the back, and before he knew it, he went deep, deep down. He just held his breath. until he could hold it no more, and he could breathe underwater. The turtle laughed at him and said, yeah, there is a magic surrounding you now. That's why you can breathe. And deep, deep, deep down they went. Lighter colors, and they went darker and colder until the turtle parted deep seaweed and his eyes were opened. The trees of the Sea King's land were like, the leaves were like emerald with the cherries, red like rubies. As he went on and on, he saw the fish just swimming by, their scales like silver. And he saw, so the legends are true. There are sea dragons that glittered like gold. And finally, they came in front of the Sea King. Urashima got off the back of the turtle and bowed down. Your Majesty. And the turtle went forth to the Sea King. And in front of Urashima's eyes, the turtle transformed into this beautiful young princess. The most beautiful woman he had ever laid his eyes on. And she raised her hand to him and said, arise, Urashima, for I am the Sea King's daughter. The Sea King came down the steps, dum, dum, as all the creatures bowed in reverence. He said, Urashima, because you have saved my daughter, I give her in marriage to you. He took Urashima's hand and he put it in his daughter's hand and said, now we celebrate your marriage. And everybody burst into joy and clapping, and you could see a tornado just swirling round and round. Everything passed in the world. Every day, Urashima joined the Sea King's daughter, looking at the deep seas that he had never seen before, the deep crevices where they had gold and silver and all the sea wrecks filled with treasures that he had never seen. He ate things, flavors that he would never dream of. You must remember, he came from a really poor village. One day, he was just swimming around and he looked up. Oh, he looked up deep, deep top, and he looked at the sun glazing down on the surface of the sea. And he thought to himself, oh, I wonder what happened to my parents. They must miss me. For it had been 3 years since he had followed the turtle down into the deep sea. So he went to his bride and said, I must return home. I must check on my parents, for they are old and elderly. I do not know who will take care of them. She grabbed his hand and said, please, do not go. If you do, I fear you will never see me again. And something dreadful will happen. But he insisted and he begged and he said, I must see my parents. They are old and weak and I do not know. He begged her day after day and she could not take it no more. Heartbroken, she took a big box and gave it to him. If you must go, take this box. But please, no matter what you do, do not open it. Promise me that you will not open it. And in his haste, he said, yes, I will. I promise with all my heart. So, with a heavy heart, she sent him back to the surface by another turtle, a bigger turtle this time. And as he stepped on the shore, he looked around. He rubbed his eyes. This couldn't be it. Nothing that he had remembered was similar, for he saw roads like never before. he saw animals. They made strange noises going at high speeds. He did not see anyone carrying swords or the kimonos, dressed in kimonos, but they're dressed in weird clothing. He stepped forth. The mountains were similar, but the trees were all leveled out. He walked forth. He ran. He dashed back to where he remembered his parents' place was. It was no more. He asked, Sir, do you know of where this place was? He shook his head. He grabbed onto another. Ma'am, do you know of Urashima? He shook his head. Finally, he walked with a heavy heart. And he came to this old lady and he asked, have you heard of this young man by the name of Urashima? Do you know what happened to his parents? The old lady sitting down said, Urashima. My great grandfather told me the story. This young man, Urashima, went out to sea one day and never came back. Urashima was so heartbroken. He looked around and he saw the box. And he thought to himself, perhaps I will open this box and it would bring me back to my princess. But he had forgotten that the princess said never to open the box. Perhaps he could have forgotten, perhaps in his haste. Anyway, he pulled it open and out came a big cloud, white cloud that drifted to the heavens. And there was nothing inside. But something changed on him. His black hair grew white. His face grew wrinkly. His straight back grew bent. He grew so shriveled. And he fell on his knees and fell flat to his face. And just before he passed on, he remembered what the lady said. For that had been 300 years ago. And his last thoughts were, the 3 years that he spent in the sea were actually 300 years on the ground. So, who knows, if Urashima had not opened the box, he could have lived 1,000 years more.
Thank you. Nice, John. Good. It's a great story. Thank you very much. And I loved again the way you physicalized that with the bowing and the moving. And at one moment I really saw the turtle moving. It was lovely. Thank you. I hope we'll see you at one of the festivals here at 398.2. As I said at the start, we were due tomorrow to tell some stories on the theme of voyages, far and feminine. And I thought I would like to end this this evening, because we are getting almost 9 o'clock here, with a story that is a true story, indeed. And I want to tell it particularly because there are so many women who are watching this evening. And also it's particularly appropriate at a time when so many airlines are really suffering, and possibly we're even wondering if some will go under and not survive, that I should tell this particular story. And it begins on a sunny afternoon in June in 1930. And a woman went out window shopping along Bond Street, which is a rather upmarket street in London. And to her surprise, she saw in a window there was a plane. And the sign by the plane said, "Blackburn Bluebird, ready to fly. You could fly anywhere, £500. And Mildred, that was her name, she went into the shop and, sensing an opportunity, she said to the salesman, "Is that true? You could fly anywhere?" "Yes, ma'am." "Could you fly around the world? And the man said, oh, yes, ma'am. You see, the wings fold up. Well, Mildred, who'd never been on an aeroplane, this was 1930, didn't know much about planes, but the one thing she did know was that you needed to have wings in order to fly. Yes, indeed, ma'am. But you see, this plane is too small. It'll get you across the English Channel, but it would never carry you across the Atlantic, let alone the Pacific. So the wings are designed to fold up so that you can put it into a crate, load it on the deck of a ship, and sail across the ocean, unpack it, and then carry on your trip. And Mildred said, oh. And she wrote out a cheque for £500, plus a little extra for maps and charts, and probably some nice pilot's goggles, and a nice flying cap, of course, and went home. And told her husband no, she hadn't bought a dress, she'd bought an aeroplane, and that she was going to fly around the world and be the first person to do that solo. Well, I'd have loved to have sat in on that conversation and hear how Victor Bruce, her husband, responded to that, because £500 in 1930 was an awful lot of money. But to his credit, because he himself was also a speedster and a record setter. He'd met Mildred when they were both competing in the London to Monte Carlo rally a couple of years earlier. And he supported and encouraged her, and very sensibly, he actually gave her a compass so that she would never get lost. She had the plane sent to Heston Field, which was a tiny, tiny airstrip, literally in the middle of a big farmer's field, just outside London. It's a bit larger now, it's called Heathrow. And she arranged to have some flying lessons. At the end of the first week, she got her, did first solo flight. At the end of a month, she got her pilot's license. And 2 months after first stepping into the cockpit, she set off, never having flown more than 40 miles on a single trip, on her round-the-world journey of more than 19,000 miles. What did she take with her? Well, she had, apart from her husband's compass, in a shoulder bag, she had just a passport, a logbook, she had a couple of summer frocks and an evening dress, because she was determined, having spent the day flying in this open cockpit and with all the wind and the filth from the engine, the fumes and the oil, that when she arrived in the exotic capitals of the far-flung outposts of the British Empire and the French colonies, she wanted to be able to live it up and to be a woman. She also brought with her a dictaphone, because this was in the days long before digital voice recorders and, of course, Twitter and Instagram. This was a rather large, heavy and bulky piece of equipment with a sort of long tube-like microphone that you held, rather like the old days of a telephone. It was very heavy. So in order to be able to put it on the plane, what didn't she bring with her? A parachute. Mildred flew around the world without the safety net of a parachute. And to explain that, perhaps I need to give you a better idea of what sort of plane she was actually flying in. Something rather like this, only 30 feet wingspan, 23 feet from propeller to tail, and only 9 feet high. It was a twin-seater, open cockpit. That's why it was called the honeymoon model. The idea was that the instructor would sit beside the trainee as they were learning to fly. Mildred ripped out that other seat and put in a spare fuel tank, gave her an extra 90 gallons that she could actually fly a little bit further without having to run. The only other modification she made to the plane was to have an extra propeller put underneath the fuselage. So why didn't she need a parachute? Because whereas nowadays planes can virtually fly themselves, going from one beacon to another, in those days, you relied on the 3 R's of aerial navigation: railways, rivers, and roads. She had to stay below the cloud cover in order to see where it was she was actually going. And so therefore, a parachute would have been no use to her, because it would have opened by the time that she actually hit the ground. And because she was so determined to actually follow what was on the ground, that was her first near miss. She was approaching Belgrade and following a steam engine that was kind of puffing along a valley, and she was so engrossed watching the train that when it went round a sort of a bend in the valley, and she banked and followed around, to her dismay, she saw the train was disappearing into a tunnel. And in front of her, there was this massive cliff of rock. So fortunately, she managed to pull back and climb, and just in time managed to clear the hilltop and zoomed over some poor Serbian shepherd, I gather, giving him a shock as she zoomed over him and his flock. Her first real problem was a few days later, when she was flying over the Persian Gulf, and unfortunately, she flew into a sandstorm, which caused some serious damage to her engine, and also, to complicate matters, at that moment, her fuel pipe developed a leak. So she's watching her fuel gauge, kind of, and suddenly this propeller, this really noisy propeller that was just 2 meters in front of her, stopped. Can you imagine? From that noise, there's silence. There's just the sound of the wind as it coming through the struts, and she is losing altitude. The sea is below her, the land is in the distance, and she's losing altitude, ghosting. Ahead of her, she sees what seems to be a dried up lake or mudflat. Unfortunately, she manages to land on that, and just as she thinks, good, I've landed, I'm safe, the weight of the plane drives the wheels through the mud into the soft mud underneath, and the plane went from 90 miles an hour to 0 like that, upended, and she smashed her head on the front of the cockpit. Fortunately, it wasn't serious. She was only unconscious for a short while. Mildred built a very stern stuff, got herself out, took her water flask and her husband's compass, and set off and managed to find some traveling nomads who brought her to an outpost of the British Empire, a radio signal station in what is present-day Iran. And they came back and managed to switch the propeller, because the original was now already bent out of shape, fitted the replacement, and by taking a 1 meter length of garden hose pipe from the base's garden hose, were able to fix the fuel leak. Mildred then flew on through Karachi, Calcutta, Rangoon to Bangkok. Didn't come down to Singapore, unfortunately. While she was in Bangkok, the French commissar organized a tiger hunt in her honor. And from there, she flew north up to Hanoi, where, to mark the fact that she was the very first person to fly solo from London to Hanoi, they gave her a medal, the Medal of 1,000 Elephants and the White Umbrella. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the significance of the white umbrella, but I'm sure it is quite considerable. From there, she flew on to Shanghai, where she intended to fly to Japan. But unfortunately, at that moment, the emperor decided to come out from the palace to inspect his troops. This was 1930, remember? 31 now. And there was a law in Japan that no one was allowed to be higher than the emperor when he was out of the palace. So she flew across the Yellow Sea, a really magnificent flight of 600 miles to Seoul. And then a couple of days later, when His Imperial Majesty had returned to the palace, she was able to fly to Tokyo and recorded on her amazing dictaphone that she had spectacular views of Mount Fuji as she flew past. And when she landed in Tokyo, she was presented with a pearl necklace from Mrs. Mikimoto herself. Her plane was, as the salesman had promised, had the wings folded, put in a crate, and put on the deck of an ocean liner, and she sailed across the Pacific. On reaching Vancouver 2 weeks later, she then flew south towards San Francisco, and from there across the States to New York. When she arrived in New York, I love this, she actually flew her plane. It was so small, she flew it along Broadway, she flew it around the Empire State Building, and when she went over the harbor, over the Statue of Liberty, she actually did a loop, the loop, which didn't go down well apparently with the natives. And when she landed in LaGuardia, the police officer arrested her. However, she managed to talk her way out of that, and again, the wings were folded up and put into a crate on the deck of a French ship, which brought her across the Atlantic back to Cherbourg in France. And the reason she went there was because Mildred Bruce was determined to fly back into England, which she did. And when she returned, she had a guard of honor with Amy Johnson and Winifred Spooner, two other great British aviatrixes who gave her this guard of honor to fly back into Croydon. The whole trip took her 5 months. And I wish I could say that she did actually then set the record of being the very first person to fly around the world solo. Unfortunately, she was beaten to it by an Austrian count. He managed to do it about 3 weeks before she did. But by the time she died in 1990, Mildred had held 17 different speed world records, not only in aeroplanes, but also cars, which were her first love, and then speedboats before she graduated to planes. And when I tell this story, for me it's a very special story, I actually give it 2 morals. And so I think John is the only other guy who's on this session this evening. So to the men, I say that when the woman in your life, be that your wife or your daughter, comes to you with some amazing dream, remember Vincent Bruce, okay? Support, embrace and encourage her, but remember, do give her your compass. Not only that she'll never get lost, but she'll know how to find her way back home. And to all of you women who are listening to the story, I say to you this: it's important that when you have a dream, that you do spread your wings and try to fly really high. But if occasionally that you find yourself grounded and that you have to fold your wings, don't give up, because I'm sure you can find another way to keep going forward and still reach your destination. And that's the story of Mildred Bruce. So we are already at 9:10. We've had a very good, almost, it is 100 minutes of storytelling, which I hope has made a very pleasant way for us to spend our quarantine, whether that is by a legal edict or whether we are self-isolating for this. Maybe, Sheila, we should just, why don't we have another one? Why should we wait until September? People may do, yes, should we do that, do you think?
Yes, good idea.
Yes.
Yes,
We should do another one. Find another day. Let's do another one. Because, yeah, it's just really good to be together. And if you've got you want to have a suggestion for a theme, what you'd like us to share stories about, then please do let us know. Thank you very much. We are hoping to have a newsletter out for April. I'm saying that publicly. I see Sheila's put her hand to her mouth, which she shouldn't be doing. Keep your hand away from your face, Bill. But it's something that we have talked about. And if you are doing anything, I'm speaking to the Feast members here. And if you're not a member, Anabelle, for example, you might like to, we accept anybody. You don't actually have to be in Asia. You can be a non-resident member. We'd love to hear from you, particularly if you have stories about how you are managing to continue to tell stories in this particular time, and who you're telling and how you're reaching out, or the kind of projects that you are working on in order to keep body and soul together. So can we please give everybody who's told tonight, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's an amazing diversity of tales, been really entertaining to listen to. Thank you so much for giving us a smile, giving us something that's been very heartwarming about our earnings, good advice about getting out of the house to find your treasure, and the importance of coming back home. So thank you very much, one and all.
Love the stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roger.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Roger. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.